Welcome back to Game Talk Radio. I'm Greg.
I'm Jen.
And this is episode 22,
22.
part 2 of
Yeah.
our Japan conversation.
Yeah.
So we didn't want to rush the Japan conversation. So we wanted to do 2 parts. And so we just wanted to not feel like we had to skip things or rush through things. So as we last left our heroes, it was Hiroshima, and we had just kayaked through the giant orange wooden gate, which I don't know if it's the same sort of gate that the crazy lady told us from the Goblin Tour, but if it is, a lot of times it's like a gate, like you're passing through, like you're passing from one side to the other, like passing sometimes. Now she said things like passing to the demon realm. I think she was exaggerating a little bit. I think she was taking some liberties with some of the local customs and things, but it was a show. It was meant to be entertaining, and we'll get to that later. But so that was kind of the idea. It's like a passing through gate, and we went through there, and we were on this island. And when you think of an island, sometimes you think of a small island. This was a gigantic island.
It's pretty big.
It had a ferry going back and forth probably every 10 or 15 minutes. It was just a huge ferry, going back and forth, almost like a subway. And it probably had its own schools, and I mean, it was very, very big. It had a huge mountain on it, and it was right off the coast of where the paddle park was. And on this island, it was absolutely beautiful. And we saw a couple wild deer, which we thought was neat. We're like, oh, cool, wild deer, that's neat. And then we saw some like in a almost like in a fenced yard, and we're like, oh, okay, well, that's someone must have some pet deer. That's cool.
Yeah, we thought that was really interesting because we're walking past it, going, "Oh, look at that! Like somebody has some pet deer. That's cool."
Yeah, and then you walk a little bit further, you're like, oh, there's just some deer walking down the street. Oh,
Well,
okay,
that's weird.
that's cool, I guess. And then we walked up to like a little park, this clearing, and it was really pretty. A lot of the sakura, the cherry blossoms had fallen on the ground, and there was just 10 deer maybe just in this little park eating them. So they feed off the sakura leaves, and it was absolutely beautiful. And you could walk right up to them, and they weren't like scared of you. They wouldn't necessarily you couldn't go pet them necessarily, but you could walk right up to them, and they weren't like running away. You could tell they weren't obviously hunted or fearful all the time, like typically here how skittish a lot of deer are and everything. So it was very cool and peaceful. And then we climbed our guide, Mashi. He was great. He was like, if you imagine like a California surfer dude who's Japanese. That's what he reminded me of. Like he was tan, he had this kind of great positive energy. He was super energetic, and a big smile, and he was great. So he led us up like this incredibly unsafe staircase.
It didn't have any handrails, and actually, I believe the island we went to was called Itsukushima. And then the gate was the Miyajima.
Oh, yeah, okay. That looks right.
The gate, the Great Torii was the gate.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely where it was. Yeah. And so we didn't. I mean, that island's huge.
It's fairly large.
It's like it's as large as Tokyo City is, I think.
It's right out of Hiroshima Bay.
But yeah, so that was cool. And so he was a great tour guide, and he took us up to this spot where we got some great pictures. But the staircase was unbelievably unsafe. Like I'm talking, these steps were like 2 or 3 inches long, and it was steep as all hell. Like one wrong slip on that, and you're going down the whole thing. And but we got up there and got some cool pictures, and yeah, it was really, really great. And then we paddled back, and I think it took about an hour to get out there, and then an hour back paddling. It was great though. It was we paddled past an oyster farm, which was really neat, and so we got back, and then that was it. And then it was taking the train back into Hiroshima city proper, so that we could go to the Peace Museum. So I'll let you talk a little about that.
Well, first of all, we had to figure out where we were going because we weren't entirely sure. Thankfully, our Airbnb that we had from Tokyo had us part of the Airbnb package that we could have a wireless Wi-Fi hotspots,
Yeah, that was a
which
lifesaver.
was really, really great. So we were able to figure out where we were going with very little trouble, with the exception of, you know, normal troubles, which is, if you're in an underground train, you can't really get a lot of service or signal in general. But the Peace Museum, it was a little bit of a walk to get there. It was very, I mean, there's no way to really put this. It was a very moving area. It obviously was the place where, during the war, World War II, right?
Hmm.
They dropped the atomic bomb there and at Nagasaki. But the Peace Museum was a very interesting experience because it made everything very real. I had a very similar experience visiting the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. It's very moving when you see actual articles of clothing and you see people's personal belongings and hear the story behind them. Like these were the clothes that this 12-year-old student was wearing, and that was what they later died in, wearing these clothes or carrying this lunchbox, or this was all that they could find of this person's belongings or remains or anything. So it's very, very, very sad exhibit of different things and pictures and
Yeah, it's very moving, and we were in the we were in the exhibit with maybe 100 other people, and you could hear a pin
it
drop.
was dead silence.
Yeah, like everybody understood the nature of the weight of the things that happened there, and you know it was very it was very depressing, I guess, but not in a bad way. Like it was something you have to see, and you have to kind of understand that things like that happened. And I'm not going to go too much on like a history um, thing here, but it was wartime, and Japan was doing some awful things to other countries too, and so you can argue about whether the atomic bomb was the right thing to do, but it was the fastest thing to do, and unfortunately, that was the option they chose, or it could have been a prolonged war where maybe we lost more lives of soldiers, and you never know. And so it's one of those things where you kind of you just realize that war is bad, and any war is bad, and we need less of it, and it was just, but it's a stark reminder of some of the horrible things that can happen in this world that people can do. And one thing that moved me was at the end. It was kind of disappointing too, but at the end, you find out that the only sitting president that's ever visited that museum was President Obama.
Yeah.
And I guess other presidents have gone, but not while they were a sitting president. And
Mm-hmm.
I found that really surprising, because it's a pretty big deal. I don't know. I guess I feel like that should be something that all presidents should do, understanding kind of the weight of a decision like that, but also, just to get some historical reference. So it's something that you're not, it should never be something that is wanted to be done. But then they also, at the end of the exhibit, they had some really, you could write your thoughts and feelings in a book, and they keep all those. And then I read a few of the other people's that they wrote, and it was interesting. It was like a shared experience with people you didn't know, a
Mm-hmm.
shared emotional experience with people you didn't know.
Well, and one thing that I learned while we were there, which I had not known before, was a lot of the victims were children because they were, um, when before the atomic bomb was dropped, like other people were actually firebombing Japan.
Yeah, well, the U.S. was firebombing Japan in its major cities, which a lot of people argue were more abrasive than the atomic bomb was, because they were burning, the villages, and burning the whole city was wood, so they're just burning everyone's homes. And
And a lot of of the Japanese population were very afraid of these firebombs and having fires because they could spread so quickly and destroy a town. So what they were doing in order to prevent a fire from spreading to the rest of that area, they were taking down, doing what they were calling demolition. So they were taking down buildings, to separate them so that if a firebomb hit, it wouldn't spread. And they were getting school children to do this.
Yeah, I mean everybody was helping with it. I mean everyone was assigned to help with it because it was urgent. Like there were some fires that were burning and
Mm-hmm.
they needed to stop the spread, so they had to have people go out and demolish buildings. Like they picked maybe a building that was half a mile away, and they carved them down so that by the time the fire spread there, the buildings were gone and it wouldn't destroy the other part of the city. So
Right. So I didn't realize that they were doing that. And it was it was horrible to see that because I would say a good 60 to 75% of the people that you read about during this exhibit were children under the age of 16.
yeah, yeah, and it was really sad, but again, it was war and it was atrocities and on both sides, and you just you have to understand it and respect it, and then you know move on from it. But I think it's good that that sort of feeling is something you should have. So now that we've sufficiently depressed the listeners
Yeah.
of the podcast, but it is something that it I don't know, without getting too preachy, it just you have to, like, you can't forget that sort of stuff that happened and that it can happen again, and it's why it's so important. But it was just moving, I guess, is what I'd like to say. So
Mhm.
I do recommend that everybody go and experience something like that in their lifetime if they can. When we left there, we had looked up because we need to get dinner before we left, and we had looked up one of the top restaurants on TripAdvisor, I think it was, right?
Yeah, I think that's where I found it.
And because there's a great food dish in Japan called okonomiyaki,
Mhm.
and they have different versions in the different regions you go. So yeah, there's a Hiroshima version, an Osaka version, and a Tokyo version, I believe, are the three different ones. And there's probably a bunch of others. So we had heard about this place being amazing. So we went there, we got in, we ordered. And okonomiyaki, I guess the best way to describe it is if you've ever been to a hibachi grill where you sit at the table and the guy performs his little art and he cooks everything right at the table for you. Everyone's got like a hibachi grill in front of them, and they come out and they cook this. Technically, the one in Hiroshima they didn't cook on there; they just kind of heated it up. On ours, it was already
Yeah,
cooked when they
they
dropped
had
it
a
off.
larger like area where the chefs were and they were cooking it. And I think they still have the hibachi there for maybe if it's not as busy so that they could do it or um they used to do it that way and then they realized that they couldn't keep up with the demand, but it's still reminiscent of having it on the hibachi.
Hmm. And it's so imagine a savory pancake. So they take a bunch of good stuff with like a batter, and then they mix it all up, and then they cook it on this hibachi grill for you. They have this delicious like barbecue sauce, and then a sweet mayonnaise drizzled on top, and it's I don't even know how to describe it. It was just the best thing. It was the best thing I ate when I was there.
Yeah.
And but then the Hiroshima version is kind of strange because they have that savory pancake on top of noodles, and
Hmm.
then they have other toppings on top of it. So it's almost like they don't construct it all as one big pancake and serve it to you. They kind of have it different pieces of it. And
Hmm.
it was very good. It was a little harder to eat because as you're trying to cut it, it's just essentially just food slop. You're trying to like
Mm.
get on your
It was
plate.
so good.
Um, but it was very, very good. And they had like a spicy barbecue sauce that you
Mm.
could drizzle on there, and I caked mine with it, and my mouth is
Oh,
literally watering right now
I'm just
talking about
thinking about it going, oh, that was so
it.
good.
It was so
Well,
good.
and it was more difficult to eat, but I appreciated having like I got a green onion once, so it was just piled with sliced green onions on top of my pancake, and then you had that wonderful soy-based sauce on top of the pancake, and then the really good um, noodles. They were udon. They weren't yeah, they were udon.
Udon, yep.
We had the choice of getting udon or soba. And since we were all kind of like, no, we don't want soba noodles. But it was great. It was a great experience. We each got like a cocktail. I got beer because um I love Japanese beer is really good. I think.
We had like lemonade mixers or something. It was
It was a whiskey
yeah, it
cocktail.
was a whiskey lemonade. It was pretty good.
I took a sip. The whiskey there, they really have one major brand called Suntory. It's advertised everywhere. And when you order a whiskey cocktail, you just order like a whiskey highball, and and you get Suntory. Like it's completely unspoken.
Yeah.
But to me, it reminded me of Scotch
Hmm.
almost. The flavor or the aroma was very reminiscent of a Scotch that we used to have at the bar I worked at, or we probably still do, but the bar I used to work at called the Froig, which to me had the same. I said it tasted like shoe polish.
Yeah, that was about similar. It was good. I mean, we were walking a lot and it was hot outside, so I
Just
mean,
yeah, I mean, just having that and like with me, it's like having a bite of this delicious pancake with the noodles and just getting real. It was really, really filling. Like I was stuffed after eating that, and then
yeah.
having that delicious icy cold beer. It was just perfect.
And then so then we had to get back to the bullet train by a certain amount of time because we had our tickets obviously to get home.
Hmm.
And we had to get back in time because it was a 4 hour
Yeah, it was a
train
4 hour
ride.
from the Shinkansen. Hmm.
But we had to get back in time to still be able to take the trains back to um, back to our Airbnb. So so we left around 6, I think it was, or something. But it was great. And on the way back, we're walking. We found a couple used game stores, so I got to kind of
Greg found some used
I
games.
found it was just kind of like I was in my element. It's hard to describe, but like when you're in a foreign country and you feel like everything is foreign to you, and then the universal language of video games kind of made me feel good. And so I liked browsing, and they were all good sports. They let me browse and didn't complain. So it was great. And I don't know if I found anything there. I might have found a couple games, but nothing too crazy. It was just really fun to shop and to look at games because I think that's something that I'm just gonna say. I think it was a little bit of a mistake on our part. We didn't give ourselves enough time to shop.
Mm.
We I think like we were so busy sightseeing, which again, on one trip to Japan, even for 11 days, you don't get to do anything you want to do. Like you feel like you have a bucket list that you try to check off, but there were so many things we wanted to do that we didn't.
So we have
And
to go back.
so we'll have to go back. But it was a great trip. And so I think I'd like to have a whole day of just like an actual whole day of shopping, or maybe even 2 days of just going to like a shopping district and going to like a mall type area and going into shops and checking it out because we were always doing it as a secondary thing, and it just always felt like we were rushing or that we were out of time. So, but it was great. Obviously, no complaints about that experience. But so we got back on the train, and then we got back to
We were all
yeah, that
exhausted.
was a rough one. That train ride actually, like I'll tell you, the 2 hours wasn't bad, but the 4 hours was pretty awful. Like the chairs didn't recline back at all. Like that was not a great train ride.
Oh,
It was fast,
mine
but
did.
yeah, mine didn't. I don't know what it was, but
You
mine
should have switched with me. I would have given you mine.
nice. Well, thanks for telling me now. It's only 2 weeks later.
Wow.
Yeah, but yeah, so
Well, in our Airbnb in Kyoto, we didn't get very good sleep on it anyway. Because, I mean, not to go into too much detail, because, I mean, we only did spend 1 day in Hiroshima, so we didn't have to find a place to stay there because the idea was leave Kyoto very early and then leave Hiroshima late and get back to Tokyo. So it was, we didn't really stop once we left Kyoto. We were go, 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 go until we got onto the train back to Tokyo. But I wasn't as enthused about our Kyoto Airbnb. I mean, it was fine. It was a place to stay, but it was just a strange layout, and the stairs were really treacherous. And
yeah, and the only toilet was on. It was actually a 3-story Airbnb, which is why I picked it. I thought it'd be really cool because there was like each floor had bedrooms. I was like, well, we each get a floor then, and don't have to worry about being too close to other people sleeping, and and not making too much noise. And then like the only bathroom, no, well, I should say the only toilet is on the second floor in one of the bedrooms, which it was just really weird. So then, and there was no sink there, so you have to like use the bathroom, then go downstairs to wash your hands. It's really
it was very
very
strange.
strange. And then a little bit upstairs, I said this to Ash, which she did not like, but I said this about the middle and the upstairs. I said that it resembled the house from The Grudge, and that like at any moment the garage door could open and this little like pale looking boy could come out, and then some like awful ghost Japanese demon would come out. It was really funny, and she's like, "Why would you say that?"
Well,
Like,
and
sorry.
it's just like the futons or the beds that we had, they weren't the most comfortable, and it was so we ended up the second night stacking two of the futons on top of each other, which helped.
It helped a little bit,
But
yeah.
like the windows were open and we didn't realize it, so it was really cold. And so I woke up at like 3 in the morning and I'm like, why is it
Yeah.
so
And
cold?
they have
And
different heaters, like heat boxes for each floor.
so we didn't even have the heat
So we didn't
on.
have the heat on, and it
We
got
were
really
so
cold.
confused.
But it was alright. You just bundle up with a cold blankets. We live in Wisconsin. We
It
know what
was
it's
it was
like.
fine. It was just like I finally realized that the both of the patio windows were wide open. I'm like, how did I not notice this before? But we were just exhausted at that point. And so, if you don't get the greatest sleep, and you're go, 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 and then you're on the train and it's just, you're exhausted.
It was funny. We almost felt like happy to get back to Tokyo, like it was our house. We were like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, it's good to be home. Like that was our
Mm-hmm.
home base, and so we got back late. That was late Wednesday night.
What did we do
Um,
when we got in? I think we just went back, didn't we?
I think we went back, and then did we
Didn't we
get our
get,
McDonald's on the way back
I
because it
don't
was just
remember.
easy, and it was like we
Because
wanted
it's,
teriyaki burgers.
I don't remember.
But yeah, we got something.
It must have been that because
What was the first night we had the good ramen?
we had that really early in the trip. That was like our first full night there. I think we had
It
ramen
was one of them because we ended up going there 3 times total
because it was that
because it was
good.
that good.
It was so good.
And that was only a block from our Airbnb, so you just get out
Yeah,
and walk a block down the street.
that was our first night, or
Yeah.
like not our first night, but like our first full day in
Oh, that was the
Hawaii.
end after Ueno. We went there,
Mhm.
yeah. So then that Thursday, the plan was to go do some stuff and then go to Disney Sea, which is like like Disneyland, but there's a sea themed version of it
So they
in
have like
Japan.
20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Little Mermaid,
Yeah.
stuff with steamboats,
hmm
that kind of
So
stuff.
what did we end up doing that Thursday? Like I'm totally spacing on that
We
day.
just hung out. We watched a movie, didn't we?
Well, at night, but what did we do during the day?
Oh,
What pictures we got here?
Thursday.
We're actually literally going through our pictures to like help
Oh,
remind
didn't
us.
we do
Oh, that was the Ghosts and
the
Goblins
Ghosts and
tour.
Goblins tour?
So we met this
Crazy lady.
crazy lady who was an American who is now living in Japan. She apparently works at the embassy, but when we brought that up, she's like, "Well, don't mention that," because according to her, a lot of people are still very superstitious there, and they don't like that she goes around to all these places and takes people to these places. If you have to ask me, I thought it seemed more like they don't take it seriously, and she's trying to make a buck off of like the scary, spooky side of things. Like I think it's more like if here in Green Bay, like say you were like working in government here and like you're like an alderman or something, and then on the side you took tourists on a haunted Green Bay ghost tour, and your peers would be like, "What do you like?" Okay, I guess it's just not like it's. I don't believe it's like she made it sound like it was because they're such forbidden areas and they're afraid of the bad mojo that she'd bring back with her. I don't think it's so much that as it is like they're probably thinking she's exploiting tourists, but
Well, and she has said that she had lived in Japan for like 30 years.
yeah, she's been there a long time.
Didn't you call her the original, the OG weeaboo?
The OG weeaboo, the
But
original.
she obviously she knew Japanese because she had talked to people while we were there. And
I would sure hope so if you live there for 30
well,
years.
I
Like
would
if you
hope
don't
so
pick
too.
up the language, there's something wrong with you.
Now she walked us around. I mean, I wasn't scared. I thought it was going to be more like spooky stuff, but I learned a lot on the tour. It was definitely worth the money that we paid for the tour, I think. But I don't think it should have been branded as a spooky ghosts and goblins tour.
Yeah, so as far as a scary tour goes, it was really stupid. Like for like a Ghosts and Goblins of Tokyo, scary spooky tour, it was really dumb. However, from an informational and neat little things on side streets kind of tour, it was really good. So overall, the tour is fantastic. I almost wish she hadn't pitched it as a ghost tour. Now we may not have done it, and the reason she did do it that way was because people see ghost tour, they want to go. If you
Yeah.
say, "Hey, we want to walk around and look at some temples," people are like, "Well, I can do that on my own." But we saw some very, very cool things that I was very glad we did the tour, and then we ended up at the temple,
Mhm.
and we did like a few of the rituals like drinking. Well, not drinking the water, but you put the water and you get the bad spirits on, then you have the smoke around your head and you do all that sort of stuff.
Mhm.
But we, sorry, you can go ahead and talk about that.
No, I was just reminding you that I mean like Greg said there was a lot of things that we wouldn't have seen normally or wouldn't have found or thought we would have had time for. So it's the grave of Hokusai, which is if you probably know him as a painter even though you may not know his name, but the very Japanese waves painting is by Hokusai, and we got to see like his final resting place, and went to a couple Zen, or was it Zen Buddhist or was it Shinto?
We were doing a lot of Shinto because that was like the temples had different deities and different like deities to pray to. Which is something I learned when I was there is that I guess Buddhism, like Christianity, has a lot of different versions.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the versions is called Shinto Buddhism, which is the thought of there being a lot of deities that you pray to for different things. Like there's a toad deity that you pray to for good skin
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. So then there's Zen Buddhism, which is where we were going to a few of the temples where there's like you see the Zen gardens where there's like these beautiful sand gardens that they
Mm-hmm.
like rake into beautiful patterns and they upkeep these, the idea of feng shui and stuff like that.
And
Um,
then there's like a lot of uh just like it's just it's very interesting because all of them do have like these statues and deities and such and wise men, and we went to a temple that had a huge like there were like maybe 30, I would say, of these statues of these wise men, and you were like she explained that whichever one you're drawn to is very is like your is a personification of yourself or how you perceive yourself, and yet you can go around and you touch like the tops of each of these statues head, and whichever one feels warm, I think it is,
yeah, whichever one feels warm is supposed to be
it's
like
supposed to
your
be your.
reflection.
So I thought that was kind of interesting, but I think I didn't mind that it was branded as a ghosts and goblins tour because she did go over different ghosts and goblins and stuff, and walk through and learned a lot of historical stuff. But I didn't like the other people we were on the tour with.
Yeah. So like we were embarrassed to be the other white people on the tour with these other people. The only saving grace was they at least weren't American. One couple was from the UK and the other couple was from um,
New Zealand or
yeah,
Australian or something.
somewhere annoying, but they were awful, and so we had a little bit of secondary cringe from being white, but thankfully they weren't American, so it was all good.
But we got to see like we learned a lot about kappas, which are like these little goblins that want to touch your butt.
Yeah, according to crazy Japanese lady or crazy American lady living in Japan, the kappas are like perverted, which is fine. Why not? And there's the rumor that now that there's all the sewer systems that they live in the sewers because they're typically like aquatic goblins. Okay. And then she said sometimes at night they'll come up to the toilet and, in her words, caress your buttocks. So then at this point, like, I'm kind of laughing at, I mean, who wouldn't laugh at that? But I'm laughing at this kind of whole tour. Like, it was informational, hilarious. But so then I was making a joke that I think she was searching for a lifelong kappa lover. I think she was like she if she could she would make sweet love to a kappa. So I think so I made jokes that she like sits over the toilet at night and she's like, "Hey kappa, anybody down there?
I got a little butt for
I
you.
got a butt needs caressing."
But she was funny. I enjoyed it. I thought she was delightfully quirky.
She was fine. The
Um,
tour was fine.
but we got to see the Kapabashi kind of shopping district. There's a lot of food, a lot of really interesting shops. There's a shop that was dedicated to just replications of plastic food. Well, repli- replication of food,
Yeah,
I guess,
plastic
in plastic.
replication of real food.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. I was like, how do I say this? So they had, what's really popular or very, I wouldn't call it traditional, but what's
Prevalent?
very, yes, prevalent about Japan is that a lot of restaurants either have pictures of food or plastic versions of that food. And it dates back, she explained kind of the reasoning behind it. It was during the rebuilding of different parts of Japan, people would come in and have restaurants, and they wanted to encourage people to come try their food, and what made it easier was showing people what that food was supposed to look like, and so it just kind of carried forward, and there are shops that are just devoted to these plastic replicas of real food dishes. And you can go into the store and buy, a plastic ice cream cone or bowl of ramen or okonomiyaki, which is really cool, the
Mm-hmm.
Hiroshima style
Yep.
even. And they had this big towering, hamburger that had, like eggs and slices of meat and tomato and lettuce, and it was just stacked. It was a good, like, what, 3 feet tall?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was huge, and it was just in this display
Just a
case.
fake plastic burger.
But it was also like a lot of restaurant supply stores. So it was just interesting because we wouldn't have thought to go to Kapabashi. And we ended up there and seeing everything that was to offer. And she explained some of the different food products from the vendors. And it was nice for that too, because again, we wouldn't have thought to go into some of these areas
Yeah.
because they were either remote or off the beaten path. So I really appreciated it for that too. Plus, she did provide a lot of really good information that I'll remember because she made it kind of fun.
Yeah, and real quick before I forget, I don't want to forget this. When we visited the grave of Hokusai, I played World of Warcraft for many years with a good guy named Sean, and his character's name was Hokusai, and I never knew it was based off that Japanese artist. And so I know Sean, we're good friends. I know him a long time now. I mean, probably God, it's got to be 10 years, if not longer. And so when I saw that, I took a picture of it and I texted it to him, and I was like, Sean, where did you get your WoW name? And then he finally got back to me. And he's like, "Oh, some Japanese painter. I just dropped the A at the end." And I was like, "Dude, I just saw your grave." It was really cool. So anyway, shout out to True Grave and to Sean and Hokusai. But yeah, that was great. And then that tour ended at like a big temple. So what was cool is like a lot of these things you wouldn't have seen on your own. So like we're walking through these little like back alleys and side streets, and all of a sudden, boom, you turn the corner and there's a temple. And
Hmm.
so these are things we would not have seen. So while it wasn't spooky and it wasn't scary, it was informative and very cool. So I'm glad we did it. I'm very, very happy we did it.
Especially the little shrine dedicated to the Tanuki,
Yes. Yeah.
which I didn't know anything about the Tanuki and what it meant to the Japanese until that tour. So
Yeah.
I liked it. Like I said, she was quirky. It wasn't a Ghosts and Goblins tour and it wasn't spooky, but I found it really informative and really fun, with the exception of the other people we were with.
Yeah.
I learned a lot.
Um, but yeah, so that was fun, and then we ended at the temple, and then that night we were supposed to do Disney Sea, and we got back, and man, we were just
We had already done so much walking, and one of the people we were with, her, well, Ashley, I
yeah,
guess she was the only other girl. Her knee had been bugging her, and we didn't want to overstress it. She had been icing it, and we didn't want to really have her walk another, 5 miles that
no,
night at Disney Sea, which we realized once we went on that following Saturday was a lot of walking.
yeah. Well, and it was funny. So we got back to the Airbnb, and we decided we weren't going to go that night, and we set up because there were 3 bedrooms in our Airbnb, so we set up the third bedroom as the movie room. So we watched some Netflix, and we just like we all went in there and just kind of set up like our beds and just had like a camp out sleepover. It was one of the cooler nights too. It was really
Yeah.
fun actually, and it was like a nice night to chill and recharge. And I'm sure some people are gonna be like, "You're in Tokyo on 11-day vacation. You spent one night in watching movies." Yeah, you can't burn out on, and you can only see so much stuff, and you can only walk so much. And it was a great night because it recharged the batteries for the next day, and the next day after that, and then the next day after that, because we were already at that point, we're on our last third of the trip,
Mhm.
and you're already starting to miss home a little bit, and we after going to the cat cafe, we were missing our kitty cats, and so like before, but you don't want to waste the last few days of your trip wanting to leave. So you got to kind of do those things to recharge, and we definitely did that.
And it was worth it. I mean, like we said, I mean, like, could we have gone to like a karaoke cafe? Sure. But, I don't think any of us were really had any interest in that, except I love karaoke, so I would have wanted to go just to have karaoke, but
Hmm.
I I don't think it was really that important for me or for anybody else to go and do it, so
Yeah,
we didn't actually end up doing something like that.
it'd been a fun thing to say that you did, but I don't actually think it would have been fun to do. As silly as that sounds, like it'd be fun to tell people like, "Oh, we did karaoke, it was amazing," but like I don't know, I just didn't want to do it.
So the next day, we actually spent, the girls and the guys spent some time apart because um, Ashley and I wanted to do a kimono thing where we would go dress up in kimonos, get our picture taken, do the full hair and makeup, and just kind of girl out for a little bit. But we didn't think the boys would really want to spend their day doing that when they could be doing something else. So we dropped them off pretty much
Pretty much, yeah.
at Akihabara. So why don't you talk about Akihabara?
All right. So if you don't know, it's the otaku center of Tokyo, which
Akihabara.
Akihabara.
My bad.
Um, it's the otaku center, so it's video games, anime, statues, manga. Like it's the this their word for otaku. It's our word for geek, essentially. Like just think of it that way. So that's their geek center, where everything there. So it's all computers and games and statues and anime and maid cafes where maids will wait on you and all that sort of weird stuff. So it was while they went to their photo shoot, we decided to go to Akihabara, which a lot of people will like remember the name Super Potato. It's kind of the most well-known used video game store in Tokyo, and Super Potato is just like a 4 or 5 story high video game store. Now that sounds really impressive, but each floor is only I don't know twice the size of our office here. So like if you know Game Trade like my store, each floor is maybe half of my store. So there's like
Jam packed
and
though.
but jam packed and a lot of people in there obviously because there's a lot of foreigners and stuff that want to check it out. But it's still cool. And so it was very neat. We ended up only getting about 4 hours there, and I need to go back for about 4 days because I only saw about 10% of what I wanted to see.
I
And
I agree with what you said we should do. We should go to Tokyo, stay in the Airbnb, go to Akiba like every day
every
for
day,
like a week, and then just eat ramen at
and then
night,
come home and eat ramen. Yeah,
and then that's it.
yeah, and then get McDonald's and breakfast before we go. Yeah, that all sounds amazing. But it's not like, and I don't say this in a bad way at all because I there's no regrets on this trip at all. Except maybe Disney Sea, but we're getting to that. There's no regrets in this trip at all. But originally I wanted to spend a whole day shopping, and that whole day kind of turned into 4 hours because we got there
But you got to do it again Sunday.
exactly, which again was going to be like a half day Sunday, ended up being about 2 hours, and I was stressed out because I was trying to get some last minute gifts for people, so it wasn't like what I was originally. I envisioned like a whole day of shopping, and nothing that really opens till 11. So, and we had to be back by like 4 because we were going to have dinner with one of Jen's old friends who was a foreign exchange student with her in college, which was awesome.
Yeah, we'll talk about
So,
that in a bit.
so it kind of turned though, like my day of shopping turned into 4 hours. And so like for me, a day of shopping is like, I was thinking in my head like 8 to 9 hours of Akiba. So it's definitely something I have to go back and do again because I want to ship a whole bunch of stuff home because I know there's a ton of people that would love some of the imports and stuff that I could bring back when I was over there. Um, but it was excellent though. It was really fun, and the first hour and a half we spent just in an action figure like a statue store because the statues and figures were freaking awesome.
Yeah, I bought one.
And
Well, later I
yeah,
did.
but it was awesome. And then when you start looking at video games, you're like, man, I could buy so much stuff here, but you only have a backpack, and you've got to ride a train back. So you're just kind of like, ah, like
Mm-hmm.
next time if I went, I'd probably take like a shoulder sling duffel bag and just start, you know what I mean? Or take a bunch of plastic bags and just start like coming home like you're carrying the groceries and don't want to make a second trip from the car. So you just got like 10 bags in each hand and you're just waddling down the stairs. But no, it was great and it's a really cool place. On Sundays, they actually close off all the streets. That wasn't the day we went first. We went back on Sunday. It wasn't the day we went first, but they closed down the streets and you can just walk up and down the streets with no traffic. And it's like just droves of people. It's really cool. Actually, it's almost like a big flea market but
Mm-hmm.
just all video games, anime, manga. It's just awesome.
It's crazy. I mean, in every store, there's a store for just about everything that you could think of that's Japanese
Yeah.
related.
Well, there was one. It was really funny. So there was one. There was one shop that we were walking by. It was a corner store, and just wall to wall porn. Just wall to wall porn. You
I'm glad
walk
I
by.
didn't get to see any of
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So it's just porn, 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 porn. But then in the back, my eye, of course, everybody knows Greg's video game eye, catches a Famicom playing Super Mario Brothers 3 on the back wall, and I'm like, wait a minute, they got to have video games in there, right? So as you craftily maneuver through the pornography section, I find a little corner that has some video game stuff, and I end up finding a couple of cheap PS2 imports. Actually, one of them was the game I got for one of the guys I do the other podcast with, Trent, and I got him this cool copy of Castlevania Lament of Innocence for PS2. And then I found a copy of Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes for my personal collection, which was, and it was the GameCube version, but the Japanese GameCube version for like $30 when normally that game goes for about 40 or 50. So it was actually kind of cool. So buried in this little porn corner of a store, I found some video game treasure.
Yeah, it's interesting though because I mean, it's a lot like other places in the world, um, where it's a specialized kind of district. I mean, when you go to Akiba, you know you're going to Akiba and what to expect, but there are so many unexpected things too.
Yeah, Jen took a great picture of this like display, like a cardboard display, where the woman's bosom is on like a mechanism, so it just rocks back and forth. So
Almost
it
like a
looks, yeah,
metronome.
it's like a metronome of jiggly boobies, and it's just so, it was so childish, hilarious, but so childish. But
But you
it
ended
was
up
hilarious.
buying a ton of stuff anyway.
Yeah, I probably ended up buying a total of about 100 games, 110 games when I was there, maybe.
So meanwhile, while you were doing
While
that,
the boys were partying in Akiba.
Ashley and I took a train. Thankfully, it was just one direction. We didn't have to transfer trains to this little tiny photo studio, and it was funny because it was actually it felt when you walked in, it was an apartment, but they had refashioned it to be this this photo studio. So in our experience, we got the full treatment. So we got the makeup, the hair, the stuff in the hair like flowers and junk, not junk, but you know what I mean. Flowers and
Do
stuff.
you think if I had went, they would have? I mean, not much you can do with my hair, but what do you think they
No,
would have make up me and put me in a kimono if I wanted to? Like,
well, not a kimono. They have men's kimonos.
oh, well, what if I wanted to be in a
Well,
kimono?
here's a funny story. So when Ashley booked it, she had booked the couples package because she's like, well, there's two of us, so it was a couples package. But what we didn't realize was that it meant romantic couples.
Oh,
So when we showed up, they were very confused because they're like, oh, this is the couple. And then I looked at Ashley. I'm like, oh my God, Ashley, they think that we're a couple. And she's like, no, no, no. That's not what we mean at all. And
we're just
so
we're just cheap and trying to save a few bucks by booking as a couple.
right, and it ended up not being that it ended up being about the same price. Like I actually spent how much I thought I would spend, but generally what they did, they put on makeup, they did your hair, and then they put on there's like a kimonos have several layers, and this was no different. So they had one layer that was mine was like this soft pink. Ashley's I think was red. Um, and so they put that on you, and then they take pictures with that because apparently that's like a thing. But then there's also a piece that goes over that kimono as well, and that's usually the very ornate and very beautiful. Mine was absolutely gorgeous. I'm very glad that I went with that one because it just had really vibrant colors. It was kind of sky blue with red flowers and all sorts of really cool designs on it. Ashley's was really beautiful because it was like an emerald green and it had gold stitching. And I was thinking about getting the green one, but then when I looked at it, I was like, actually, it's like gold doesn't work well with my skin tone.
Mm.
So I was like, actually, if you want that green one, Ashley, you can totally
That
wear
green
that
one
one.
reminds me of Ashley's Minnesota Wild jersey that she wears every now and then, the hockey
Oh
jersey.
yeah.
That's kind of awesome.
Well, it's funny though because it's like we tend to kind of lean more towards what we think is a good color, and I tend to favor more brighter colors, yellows and blues and reds and purples. I do love green, but that gold wouldn't have
Mm.
worked well. It would have just clashed. And gold tends to make me look really sickly. I don't know how else to describe it. But the women who were helping us were just a delight, and it was so much fun, and they had so much fun with us, just like
So going back to like the
kawaii.
customer service thing again, like they loved what they were doing.
Oh yeah,
Like yeah,
most
you
definitely.
saw that almost everywhere there.
Mhm.
The only cranky guy I think we talked to service wise was our first taxi driver, like the
The
ghost of
Ghost of
Kyoto.
Kyoto.
For one, he could have been a ghost,
Well,
but
yeah.
two, he was an old guy and he was driving. I'd have been cranky in that traffic too.
Yeah.
Yeah, people walking all over the place. He's like driving barely, almost scraping cars as he drives by. It's nuts there.
But it was super fun. I totally recommend it, especially if you want to get like the experience of wearing a kimono. But in places, especially Kyoto has this too, where you can rent a kimono for the day and walk around and do whatever you want. And that seems like it would be a lot of fun touristy wise. I would much rather prefer to get my own kimono and just have it, but not maybe the super like traditional like this is what you would wear like if you wanted like I have a lot of summer dresses and I have a lot of formal dresses, and a kimono from my understanding is a very formal dressing gown. And I don't think that I would want to get like a super formal one with like silks or brocades or anything like that. But they do sell very lightweight style kimonos that are more summer oriented. So I think when we do go back, I'll probably get one of those, but not at a tourist place. Like I would want like a legit one.
Yeah, to find do a little homework and not look just like a tourist the whole time.
But it was so much fun, and like we paid for, it was a lot of the experience, but then I also ended up paying a little bit more because you could purchase all the images in the roll that she had taken, or you could pay per print. And I was just like, you know what, it's just going to be easier if I just get all of them on a disc and then not even worry about it, because I just didn't. And that to me makes the most sense. It's the best benefit for them and for me, because they get more out of it
Hmm.
money wise, and I get more out of it because now I can have those pictures and get those pictures printed however I want. Um, so it's great.
Yeah. And the reason we had to be back by 4, like we were saying earlier, was because we were meeting one of Jen's friends,
Right.
like someone you lived with
Yes.
back in college, was a foreign exchange student at college with you,
Hmm.
and then lives in Tokyo. So you're able to reconnect, and
She works in
she
Tokyo.
works in Tokyo. Sorry.
Well, Enrica and I, we lived together my junior year. I think it was her sophomore year of college, from Japan. She's actually from, oh my gosh, this is, I've got to look it up because I keep messing up how to pronounce where she's from. Itsuba, I, she's from Tsukuba,
Tsukuba.
which is in Ibaraki,
Hmm.
which is a little north of Tokyo. And she lives there and then works in corporate account development at a company in Tokyo proper. And when she found out that we were going to be in Japan, she had offered. She's like, "Hey, if you want to get together and do something, let me know. I work in Tokyo, so it would be really easy for me to kind of meet up after work." So we figured Friday would probably be the best day, because not only does she not have to go to work the next day, just in the event of like we decided that we kind of want to extend it after we did something like dinner wise. But also, it's nice to kind of start your weekend off like that. So we kind of went back and forth about what we wanted to do or where we wanted to go, and we settled on getting Korean barbecue.
Yes. Originally we were talking about sushi, and then none of us were really feeling sushi though. Like for some reason we wanted to have sushi while we were in Japan, but I mean we just none of us were feeling it.
Yeah,
And so we were like, well, let's because there's places that are kind of like island sushi around here. There's like places like that in Japan where there's like a style of sushi
it's
where they have
conveyor belt, they
yeah,
call
conveyor
it.
belt. Yeah, so you pick off what you want. So you could try different things, but we weren't sure where to do that, where to go. So then we're like, well, we were feeling because Adam and Ashley had been to South Korea a couple years ago, and they're like they really wanted to have Korean barbecue.
And I knew that Rika loves Korean food.
Yes,
So,
so she's like, oh, I'll take you to my favorite place, which was what we wanted to hear because we didn't want the tourist spot.
right.
We wanted the spot that the locals would go to. Like, what's the best, you could find?
And she apologized because, we went there, we waited, and then we found out that the restaurant we were going to actually had two other restaurants located fairly close to one another. So after we had waited for a while, the I guess the host, whatever the equivalent of that in Japan is, he came out to us, talked to Rika, and said, if you want to not wait, we have an opening at our location, a few blocks down that has a space for you guys, so you don't have to continue waiting here. So we were okay with that because it was the same restaurant, just in a different location. And we walked to it and sat down and proceeded to um, figure out what we wanted to do. And what I was really grateful for is that Rika saw, she's like, oh, it's the the menu isn't in English. Like they didn't have any English menu, no pictures or anything. So she kind of asked us, she's like, okay, well, here's what I think. We should get, like the barbecue for like 3 to 4 people, and then we'll get the duck boki, I think that's how you pronounce it. Um, and there's this like pancake that has seafood in it, and then also like this steamed egg thing. So she kind of picked the best dishes
Yeah,
and
she took care of all
ordered
the hard
for it.
work.
Like she did, like she took charge, and I'm just like, this is crazy because I haven't seen her in 10 years, and when I think about her from 10 years ago, she was very kind of quiet, very reserved, and it was partially because she wasn't very confident in her own English. But 10 years later, she's just like, let me take charge. I know what's good here. Let me order it for everybody and we'll all share it. And it was some of the best food I've ever
Yeah,
had.
fun to see how some people change over the years. Like you're
Yeah.
expecting it to be how you remember, but and some people don't change at all. But
And she was mad. Well, she wasn't mad, but I think she was planning on paying for dinner. And I didn't let her do that because I was like, well, you took us to this place. I offered for you to take us to your favorite place. I'm buying dinner. And she's like, fine. But do you like bubble tea? I'll take you out for bubble tea.
no, that was fun, and then
That food was
it
so
was very good.
good.
So yeah, it's kind of the same idea. So then essentially it would be a Korean barbecue. It would be um, it wouldn't be like a hibachi because that's a Japanese term, but they have the thing at the table. They just cook the meat right at the table for you, the pork, and then they bring all these little side dishes, and they have these big pieces of lettuce, and you basically take lettuce like a burrito, and you throw all the stuff in there, you wrap it up, and you eat it, and it was delicious. I
And
mean, it was very, very good.
they had some sort of, it was sliced green onions and like a spicy sauce. I don't know what it was, but I could have eaten bowl after bowl of that with the kimchi. I mean, everything was so good, and it was so great to have Rika there and explain what everything was because I was really confused. And so we got drinks, we got dinner. Adam and Ashley got their Korean barbecue fix. Now I'm obsessed with Korean barbecue, and you got to try Chilsing cider.
Yeah, so cider, they have ciders over there, which are basically like
They're soft
they're
drinks.
soft drinks that I think it's like a Sprite, right? So it's like a
Hmm.
Sprite or a 7 Up. So they've got a bunch of different types of ciders, and they're good, but that's what they call their cider. And apparently there's a Korean cider called Chilsing, and it was something that Adam and Ashley have had and loved. And so we had some Matsuya cider while we were there, and it
I
was
loved
okay.
that. Now, if you've ever had like or remember Sprite Remix, that's what it reminded
Hmm,
me of.
I don't remember that at all.
It was real. It came out like us in a summer in like 2003, I would say, because it was when I was in college, 2003, 2004 in the summer, and it was super popular, and then like it disappeared off the face of the
Hmm,
earth.
everyone must have loved it.
I loved it. It was good. It was Sprite, but it had like a little bit of a fruity flavor to it. There was a tropical one. That was the one that
Oh,
I
okay.
remembered. And to me, it reminded me so much. Mitsuya cider reminded me so much of Sprite Remix.
Oh,
Like from my first sip, I was like, this tastes just like Sprite Remix.
so that was Friday.
That was Friday night, and it was
And that
great.
was
We
great.
did the that photo booth that makes you all really pretty and
Yeah.
dewy and soft, and it was really cool. And then we got bubble tea, and then we said goodnight, and it was tough, like it was crazy. Like, when you have, you know, 5 other roommates, it's kind of hard to have one-on-one time with people. and like I knew Rika, and we had a friendship, but I think being able to see her again just like took me back and reminded
Yeah.
me, and it was great to catch up and learn about what she does for a job, because that's you can't really have a great conversation over IM about what exactly do you do and what is your job. And she had just at that moment or that day gotten a promotion, so
Oh,
or a new
or a new
position,
job.
a new
She'd just been
job.
offered a new job.
She'd
Yeah.
been offered a new job, and it was a really good step up for her. So it was, it was exciting because we were able to celebrate, and it was just nice,
Yeah.
And I was actually right before we like got to the station where we were meeting, I was really nervous. I was like, oh, I'm nervous. Like, what if it's what if she's a completely different person and she is still the same sweetheart that she has
Yeah.
always been. So it was really great.
So Saturday then we had some loose ends we had to tie up.
Hmm.
So I had a bunch of stuff I wanted to ship out. I also wanted to buy a bunch of the candy for the sale that we did, the Game Trade anniversary sale.
Hmm.
So I wanted to go buy a bunch of candy, wanted to ship a box, and then we wanted to see the statue of Shibuki?
Hachiko.
Hachiko. I was close. I was close.
It wasn't even close.
So it was like the Shibuya station or something. Okay, anyway, Hachiko was, if you don't know, real quickly, the story is that like there was this Japanese man who would take the train to work, and every day he came home, his dog was always waiting for him at the train station, and they would go home together. It was like clockwork. His dog walked to the station, waited for him. He'd get off the train and go home. And I don't know if it was sudden or something happened, but the owner of the dog died, and Hachiko was known for going back to the train station every single day, waiting for his
I'm getting all upset
oh,
just thinking about it.
waiting for his papa to come home, and
Oh.
so he would go there, and apparently it was such a thing for such a long time that they built a statue to the pupper, and basically so Hachiko has a station outside this train station
He waited for 9 years and 9 months and
until
15
he
days
until he died, I think, until
until
Hachiko
until
died.
the appearing precisely when the train was due at the station. Oh God.
Yeah, it was crazy, but it was,
Oh,
and so yeah, he was just always waiting for Papa to come home.
it's like the saddest thing. I
It
mean,
is.
it's like I just looked it up on Wikipedia so we could maybe speak a little bit more about it. Um, his name was Hidesaburo Ueno, a professor in the agricultural department at the University of Tokyo. Took Hachiko and Akita as a pet, and he would commute daily. And Hachiko would leave the house to greet him at the end of each day in Shibuya Station. And they continued it until 1925, when Ueno did not return because he had suffered a cerebral hemorrhage while giving a lecture and died without ever returning to the train station.
Mm.
So then, every day for the next 9 years, 9 months, and 15 days, Hachiko awaited Ueno's return. Oh God, I can't even get through that sentence.
Oh. But yeah, so it was neat little statue.
So many people go there.
Some people go there. It was really strange though too, because I don't know if it was like a purposefully done joke, but there was straight up a huge no smoking sign, and like there were 20 people smoking around it, and it was like the only place people were smoking in that whole area. I don't get if it was like a haha look at us, we're smoking on the no smoking sign, but it was bad. A lot of people smoke over there. It's still a big thing in Asian countries where people smoke a ton.
But you're not allowed to smoke in the streets, like while you're walking. Like there's designated smoking areas. You can't smoke on the train unless it's one of those long distance trains. And they have smoking cars where you can smoke. Like there's at some train stations a smoking like area that's actually inside.
Hmm.
Well, not inside, but enclosed. But yes, the Hachiko statue was really cool. You could tell that people would like rub his little legs, because those are kind of like if you've ever gone to Springfield and seen the bust of Abraham Lincoln. People rub his nose, so his nose is like this
It's worn
very
down.
polished, kind of bronzy color. Hachiko's legs or little four paws are like that too, and it looks just like the pictures I've seen of him, and it's really cool. And so Hachiko's kind of everywhere. Like one of his ears kind of flapped forward, so you see whenever you see a little puppy image like that. His little ear is kind of
Yeah.
flattened forward, just like his statue.
Yeah.
Super cute.
So and I kind of want to, I don't want to rush anything. We're already at the hour mark,
I
so we
know.
always want to get through this. But basically, that night, then,
Disney
we
Sea.
went to Disney Sea, which it, we got a night pass, which was supposed to be like this cool thing. Hey, it's cheap because it's only half a day. Um, and apparently on the weekends at night it's still super busy. Apparently during the weekdays at night it's not busy. But unfortunately, we went on the weekend night and it was just really long lines and it was like waiting in line for an hour to go on a ride for 10 minutes or 5 minutes. And it just really
Like
was frustrating.
most of those type of
Yeah, which
amusement
is
parks.
which isn't different for Disney World. It just sucked because it was, we'd all been walking all day too, and like what you don't want to do when you're all done walking is walk around all night, and that's what we were doing and stand all night in a line, and it just our feet were wearing on us. This was the second to last night we were gonna be there, and we were just kind of worn down. And the Indiana Jones ride was really fun.
It was.
It was really cool. I'm glad we did it because that was amazing.
And it was cool to see
But
the park,
and
and
it was cool to see the park.
it was nice. And I mean, like I said, they really know how to jab at the nostalgia engine because everything was very well done and very well thought out, and everything had a purpose. It was very clean.
Yeah,
Like, it was
true.
very, very well maintained and very, kept
So
nice.
it was cool, but it was, you know, it was what it was. It just was a lot of standing in line and waiting around and walking to do a little bit of payoff.
Hmm.
So not great. So that was the only real thing that I tell people I think that was like a regret that I had there. I mean, it was the only thing that we didn't enjoy doing, I think. And even that was still enjoyment there. It just wasn't maybe it didn't meet our expectations is the better way of saying it.
And I didn't know what to expect. I'd never been to a Disney park
Yeah.
either.
And I hadn't either, yeah.
So Saturday night, that was what we did, and then Sunday,
So last day in Tokyo.
last day,
Last day
we
before we come home.
in our Airbnb there was a restaurant on the second floor that you could walk up to, and Seiko, who was our host, did tell us. She's like, just so you know, the restaurant's really good, but they speak no English whatsoever. So just keep that in mind. People still manage to get what they want and get food and get, you know, a good experience, even though there's that language barrier. But it's a place to get okonomiyaki, which is the more traditional style where, as opposed to having a thin pancake with toppings, this is a pancake that actually has all of the, it has almost like it's everything's mixed in and then cooked. But this she actually cooked in front of us, and it was really,
It
really
was it was really
it
good.
was really good.
It was really good. It was easier to eat, and the only thing it was missing was the spicy version of that teriyaki sauce or of that barbecue sauce. Because if it had that, it would have been better than the other one in Hiroshima.
But damn,
But it was great. And then
it
what's
was
really funny
good.
is so we're eating that, and we got two of them for four of us, so it was really like it was enough food easily. And then Ash knows some Japanese. She took care of it. She got us out of a few jams here and there with it, which was great. And so she's talking to this lady, and the lady is explaining how there's a place nearby that has really good sushi, and we hadn't had sushi yet at this point. And who goes to Japan and doesn't eat sushi at least once when you're there?
But she was like gesturing and saying and making like these gestures of, if you eat this sushi, you'll be really full because
Yeah,
you get a lot and it's really cheap, but it's really good, and all of this.
yeah.
And so
So Ashley's kind of like, oh, thank you, yeah, thank you very much, yeah, that's awesome, thank you. And then she leaves, and so Ashley's like, yeah, she explained to us what happened, but she was saying how she's like, yeah, I don't know where she said it was, but yeah, apparently there's a good sushi place. It's really good sushi and cheap. And then all of a sudden, like 5 minutes later, the lady comes back to the table with the sushi. And we're like, wait, what? And apparently what she was saying was she had really good sushi that was cheap and that you get a lot of.
and we
So
couldn't figure out. We were thinking, we're like, well, why was she point? She was pointing outside through the window. And I realized later, I was like, Ashley, she was probably telling you where she picked it up. Like, there's a fish market right over there. They catch the fish right off the coast, and they bring it over here. And I bought it, and like that's probably why she was gesturing in that
yeah,
area.
that she like bought it just down the street or it came
Yeah,
local fresh that morning or
like
something.
they catch it right over there, and it's the freshest tuna you'll ever have. And when you eat it, you get so much, and it's only 500 yen. And
Exactly. So yeah, so but we ended up eating it all. And I'm not a raw fish guy, and I had to try it when I was there though, and I was like, I'm not gonna like this. I'm not gonna like this. And so I packed it up and I put the rice, the soy sauce, the wasabi, the piece of fish, and it was great. I mean, fish wise, taste the texture is still a little bit off. I'm a big texture eater. I need like I can't just have like mushy stuff. I have to have some sort of crunch or some sort of like texture to it. And so the texture still threw me off a little bit, but flavor wise, it was dynamite. I mean, it was just a big piece of tuna, and it was delicious.
Yeah, Adam
And
was the one that first took the first bite, and he's like, "Oh my God, this is
I
amazing."
think he had like 5 or 6
He
pieces
had
of
a
it
lot of it.
because a lot of us couldn't finish because
Well, I couldn't take. I didn't have any because it would have been the. I know the delicate flavor of tuna would be completely lost on me because I woke up with terrible like allergies. I don't know if it was hay fever or what, but like I couldn't taste anything. I couldn't smell anything. I was blowing my nose like every 5 seconds.
yeah, you were pretty miserable that last day,
It,
and thankfully it was the end of the trip. But yeah,
yeah, and I'm like, yes, it could have been like way worse. And so I'm glad it was just allergies, but it was just like I'm like I can't eat this. I have no I like it would just be a texture and I don't think that's fair.
yeah, it was very good though, and so we were already kind of full from the meal, but then we just had to jam down this sushi too. But it was great.
It was a good idea because we went for a while without eating then because we what did we do Sunday
Well,
then?
then Sunday we went back to Akiba,
Yes.
and then we went to Marikar, which was, whew, you have to do it.
You have
If
to.
you go to Tokyo, you have to do Marikar. So, for those of you that have never seen it, it's starting to pick up some steam online. Like Kotaku did a video about it, and some other places did a video. Marikar is a 2-hour guided tour through the streets of Tokyo in go-karts. You drive your own go-kart, your street legal go-kart, and you drive on the street in traffic in Tokyo, just straight up. No helmet, no seatbelts.
Uh-huh.
On go-karts, they can go up to about 50 miles an hour, and you just go on a 2-hour tour of the city and you drive around. You get stuck in traffic. You sometimes like get separated from your group because you get stuck in a yellow light. And sometimes semis pass you very quickly. We had a scooter was zipping in between us because he was in a hurry to get where he was going. And it was amazing though. And it was 2 hours and it was $60.
Yeah.
Cheap as all hell. And it was amazing. And we started at dusk and it became nighttime while we were doing the tour. So we got to start in the daylight and then ended at night. And to see Tokyo skyline at night, with all the lights and everything, it was just amazing. The wind zipped in your face. It was a beautiful day. It wasn't too cold. I got some really good footage on my phone. I was recording some of it, and it was great. It was so cool. And you dress up as Mario characters or other
Mhm.
characters.
I was dressed as Minnie.
Jen was Minnie Mouse. I was Mario. Adam was Luigi, and Ash was some anime character. It's like a little pink bear with a bunch of blood all over
Yeah,
it.
I didn't know what that was all
But it
about.
was cool. And yeah, it was amazing. And you're driving, like people will honk at you or wave at you and take pictures of you because they just think it's hilarious. And then we had stopped for like the halfway mark of the tour,
Oh,
and there was this little Japanese girl,
she couldn't have been more than 4.
and she sees Jen across the street and just starts yelling,
Minnie,
"Minnie,
Minnie,
Minnie!"
konnichiwa, Minnie. I think I found my new calling in life, and that is to be a character at Disneyland.
in Japan
In
because
Japan.
Japanese children are
Oh my
adorable.
God. It was I now know why people do that as their job because it is one of the greatest feelings to see a little kid get so excited to see you and to know who you are. It was amazing. I'm like, "Oh, it was worth it just to see that little girl and to
Yep.
like interact with her from across the street and it was just so great. It was so nice."
Yeah, it was one of those things that recharges your batteries. And there was also like I think it was a bachelorette party.
It had to have
It was like
been
a Hummer limo, had a bunch of Japanese women that were like
all
dressed to
dressed up.
kill, you
Yeah.
know.
Oof.
And so they were taking pictures with some of the people up front, and they were all it was awesome. But then yeah, so then you drive all the way back, um, and that I mean I don't know, it was just I had this big grin on my face the whole time.
Yeah.
It was just I love the wind's whipping your hair, you're driving super fast, go karting in the streets of Tokyo, and all you needed to do that was an international driver's license. And here's how you get one of those: you go to AAA,
Uh-huh.
you pay 30
Yep.
bucks, they take your picture,
Mm.
and they give you an international driver's license.
Yep. That's it.
That's it. It's so unsafe. It shouldn't be legal, but it is, and it's great. I mean, it was right up there, like the top 5 things of things I enjoyed while I was there. That's very, very high
And
up
we
there.
saw so many things on that. Like we saw Tokyo Tower all lit up and this Ferris wheel and just the nightlife and everything was so great. And it was a great capstone. And then after that
And then, yeah,
we went and got ramen.
we got ramen again.
Oh, so good.
And the lady who ran, we think she was the owner,
She
or
had
if
to have
not, she was
been.
the main chef for sure. And she was there every time we went, and she was the best, and the ramen was the best.
It was so
It was
good.
so good. I mean, it was what, like, was it like $8
It was like
for
eight
a bowl of
bucks for a
ramen? And it's a
huge bowl.
huge bowl, and you feel you're done, you're stuffed, you had good food, but you don't feel weighed down, you don't feel like tired. Oh, but it was great. And then that was the last night in Tokyo, which was good because the night before we felt kind of disappointed with Disney Sea. So it was great that one of the best nights we had in Tokyo was the last night we were there.
Mhm.
That's how you end a trip. Because on Saturday there were part of us that were thinking, if I had to go home tomorrow, it'd be okay. But
Mhm.
then after
Yeah.
Sunday, it was like, oh, we
Oh
don't get another week
man.
here.
I know.
I
It
need
was
another week here.
crazy.
So it was awesome.
So here's some things I want to talk about. Um if anybody decides to go to Japan, because I really enjoyed our trip and we got a lot of really good advice, and I think that I can provide some guidance as well that maybe you might not find other places. And the two things we were told to bring were a coin purse and uh like
A
washcloths or
hand
hand
towel.
towels.
Yep, yep.
So a coin purse, because every denomination under $10 is a coin. So they have essentially a $5 coin, a dollar coin, a 50-cent coin,
Five
10
cent. Yep.
cents, 5 cents, and one
Once.
cent. So a coin purse is a great way to keep track of all of that because really they only have the $10, the $50, and the $100 bill.
Yep.
So a lot of the times you're going to start out with a lot of cash but end up with a bunch of change. Now, a lot of the vending machines will take $5 coins, obviously, but they won't take like pennies and they won't, I don't think they even take 5 cents, but they'll take everything in between.
Yeah.
So you'll end up with a ton of dollar coins and it's okay as long as you have a place to put them. The washcloth is a good idea, like a microfiber towel, a small one. I kept one kind of rolled in my purse so that when I left the restroom, I was able to just, because it was in the front pocket of my messenger bag, grab it, dry my hands, put it back in there. An addendum to that is I would say to go to a drugstore or to any place that sells like the travel things and get a flip top bottle, a tiny flip top bottle, and have it and fill it with hand soap.
Yeah. A few places didn't have soap, which was
Which was
disappointing.
I did not like that. I'm not that kind of person. Like I don't know if it's just the way that I was raised, but I feel very very uncomfortable with not having soap. And I thought, well, maybe next time I'll just bring like a bottle. And then a coworker of mine was, well, why don't you get like the ones that you would fill with like shampoo that have like the tiny little like flip top and you can squeeze it on there and then snap it back into place. I'm like, that is brilliant. I'm doing that next
Yep.
time.
Yeah.
I may only use it once, but it'll be worth it to have it that one time that I actually need it. So that's the other thing that I would say to bring and just keep in your purse. If you never use it, it doesn't it won't harm anything. But when you don't have access to it, that's when you realize, oh, I should have thought ahead with
Yep.
that. Because the paper towel thing doesn't bother me. It's it's like it's the soap. I'm just like I really would like soap, please. um, Google Translate app,
Yep, that helped a lot.
download and have the offline Japanese dictionary because you can take a picture of something and translate it in real time, which was very very nice to have. What else would you say?
Um, I, use a website called Go Voyagin to find
Yes.
things to do, but don't book the trips through Go Voyagin.
Yes.
They have like these crazy things. Like one of the things we thought about doing was like watching sumo wrestling practice. And so on Go Voyagin, like watch sumo wrestling tour. You pay us $40, we'll take you to the spot where you can watch sumo practice. Like, okay. And then you look it up when you get there and you can watch sumo wrestling practice for free.
Yeah.
It's just the $40 was to have somebody take you there.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of stuff like, which actually, if I were able to somehow move to Japan, that's how I'd make my living there, is I would do English tours.
Mhm.
Like I would go on those things and like schedule these tours and make my money doing that because like it's I don't want to say it's not a scam or anything. It's just these people are making money doing things that you don't need to do. But it's a good way to find things to do. There's like a samurai museum.
Mhm.
They'll even do things like you can get a bar hopping tour where you pay someone $100
That'd
and they
be
take you to a
fun.
bunch of different bars. But you could just go to those bars if you found them,
Well,
right? So,
with what Rika had done, like she like met us at the station, she took us to the restaurant, she walked us to the other restaurant that had the availability but was part of the same um like because there's two, I think there's either two or three of the same Korean places. And then she took us to like the place to get the pictures and then the bubble tea. So like she knew it, and like that could have easily been like a little mini tour.
hmm
Um, Most definitely, Go Voyaging was a great place. That's how I think I found that tea ceremony. It was also in the Lonely Planet book as well. That is a really good resource. Is Lonely Planet's Guide to Japan, because it has information on restaurants, attractions, historical places, and it's all organized by area. And Tokyo, it's got a huge Tokyo section as well. One thing also in terms of transportation, you do have the option to get the JR pass, which can work, but it's about $400. We ended up only outside of actually buying the Shinkansen tickets, which we would have had to have bought separately even if we would have gotten the JR pass. We only spent maybe, would you say, 60 to $75 on
about
transportation.
75 on the Suica card, yeah.
And so what you can do is you can buy what's called a Suica card. And a lot of different areas have different versions of it, but in Tokyo and most places that we went to use the Suica Pass. And it's a reloadable travel card, so you can load money onto it initially and then add money as you travel. So we originally bought the cards, put about $50 on it, and when your trip costs you, like 380 yen, it's about three, almost $4, but you traveled all over the place, and that can add up, but not, we didn't get anywhere near needing the JR pass levels.
Yeah.
And it's much better because you have a little bit more control. You only need to put on the money that you can, but keep in mind you can only put it in $10 increments. So you can't just put like 500 yen on it. You have to put
Yeah.
1,000 because that's the smallest denomination they allow you to put on it.
Yep. But yeah, no, that's what to do there, and that's I mean, I- you know, you have to find a healthy balance of scheduling things to do, but also exploring and doing some fun stuff, and yeah, that's it's a fun trip. It's not as expensive as you think. I know a lot of people think about like international travel and they think multiple thousands of dollars. We stay our Airbnb for 11 days, well 10 days was 2,000 bucks. So you split that four way. Again, that's 10 days. If you went for 5 days, it'd be half that price.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be 1,000, and then you split that four ways, 250 bucks for 5 days in Tokyo to stay. And our plane tickets were what, 750 maybe
We
after
got a really good
we
deal
got a
on
really
our
good deal.
tickets.
But you can find a really good deal if you look around. So you're maybe spending, I think so we spent realistically it was 500 per person lodging, 750 for the ticket. So you're looking at 12, 13, 1,400 for travel and stay.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you have to obviously have your money for when you're there. But, $2,000 to $3,000 for a week trip to Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not unreasonable to try to save that amount of money. And even if it took you 2 years, you could do that.
Right,
Um,
it's all about, kind of dealing and figuring out what's going to work for your budget. I mean, it's something that may take you a long time to kind of figure out what you want to do and how you want to accomplish it. Um, Also, when you're planning, if you're going to plan a trip like this, provide yourself enough time to get there, because what we found is, when you look at the directions on something like Google Maps, it tells you, okay, well, your train ride's going to be 10 minutes. It's 6 stops, and you have to walk someplace. You want to add at least a good, whatever time they say, add like a quarter more to it. So if
Yeah.
it says it's going to take you an hour, add 15 minutes to it because it may take you that extra time to figure out, is this the right train, and
Yeah.
maybe you missed the one that you could have taken because you just weren't sure and you wanted to double check, and so now you have to wait an extra 5 minutes for the next train to come along. And you want to provide yourself with that much time. I think that's a really important thing to remember too. It's if especially if you're booking something in advance, like that tea ceremony was at 11 o'clock and we didn't want to miss it, so we had to kind of backpedal a bit and figure out, well, what time do we need to leave in order to get there with enough time. And we gave ourselves time, but then we took that time waiting for the
Hmm.
the bus that never came.
Yeah. But no, yeah. So you gotta give yourself extra time, like you said, to get lost and to look around and to stop for 5 minutes to figure out what train to get on, stuff like that.
And
But
it just reduces your stress too,
hmm
because if you're like, well, and that's what was happening with the Kyoto tea ceremony, because it's like we we needed to get there at a certain time, and I don't think anybody likes to feel that kind of pressure of, I know that we're not going to make it if we walk on foot, so we need to figure out what we need to do. And it was a very stressful thing, and thankfully we all were not taking it personally, I guess. It's really important when you travel with people that you're going to learn how to travel with other people, and you just have to figure out what those other personalities are going to do. And thankfully we were never like angry at each other. It was frustration about the situation. Like, we weren't mad. I wasn't mad at you because the bus didn't come.
right,
It was
right.
like, this Google Map is a piece of crap. So it was really great, and you do learn a lot about people when you travel with them, obviously.
Yep.
um
But no, it was good. We got really lucky. They're our best friends, so it was really, it was easy to travel with them and to be understanding. And yeah, you get on each other's nerves a little bit because, you're more frustrated at something else, and then, sometimes it's hard to not direct that towards the people you're with. But yeah, and then that was, so that was Sunday night was Marikar, and then that Monday morning we flew out, and because of the time difference, we left Tokyo at 10 a.m. and we got to Minneapolis at 2 p.m. the same day. So
yeah, it was
four
pretty
four
great.
hour 4 hours passed in our time, but yeah, and then we drove back, and that was it. Now it's been a couple weeks already, and it feels like when we were there, it didn't feel like time was going too fast. It felt like time was going just right. But when we got home, time has just been in the blink of an eye, ever since we got back. It just time is going super fast. And then I had the game trade sale, the anniversary sale was pretty much when I got back, so I had to start prepping for that. It was just it was just boom, boom, boom. And now hopefully we'll get some normalcy and we'll get to settle down, and then maybe we'll start planning the next trip for next year or the year after. Who knows?
I think it'll be a while before I decide to take another trip, but I really would love to go back to
Yeah.
Japan. I mean, the flight sucked, but actually being there was amazing. We were with a great group of people, and it was a once in a lifetime experience to do that. And if we're lucky, maybe we'll be able to get to do it again.
Yeah, hopefully. But anybody who wants to go, you need to figure it out because it will not let you down. It was an amazing place, and I really hope to go back again sometime soon.
Great food, great things to see. If you can figure out how to do it during cherry blossom season, highly recommend it because it is gorgeous. And then everything's sakura flavored.
Yes.
But we actually went on the tail end, so we didn't find some of the sakura flavored things that we were supposed to get. Like, I think that Starbucks had that sakura, like it was a frappuccino or a latte or something, and I think that what replaced it was that American cherry pie
Yeah.
frappuccino.
Which was plenty fine. Which was also good. But yeah, we didn't find any place. Everyone was sold out of the Sakura like Kit Kats and stuff like that, like the off-brand Kit Kats that they have there. So that sucked. But
But a lot of great food, a lot of good candy.
yeah, a lot of candy.
Oh, eat all the candy.
But yeah, so that was our Japan trip, everybody. Thanks for listening, and um, we'll be back onto our regular scheduled programming come next week. But we just wanted to kind of share our trip with you, and hopefully everyone gets to go eventually in their life, and it was great. So you can always tweet at me at Game Trade Greg.
or me at Game Talk Jen. Ah,
We're gonna get that right one of these weeks.
yeah, one of these
You can
days.
email us at gametalkradiowi@gmail.com, or you can message us on the Facebook page as Game Talk Radio, and ask us any more questions about Japan. If you have any
Yeah.
questions about our experience, or if you're planning a trip and you want to know, we'll happily give you the info for our Airbnb so you can stay at the best
Oh,
place in
it's
Japan,
so great.
and we'll tell you where the best ramen place is in Japan.
Oh, we know that, and just to give you some more tips or answer any questions you may have. We'll try to answer them. If not, I can ask Rika.
Yep. But thank you very much, everybody. We'll talk to you again next week. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.